Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. So this video will once again be talking about counterattacking and what to do when your opponent has a big center. So this game was played between Garry Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov, and this was their world championship match, and Karpov was black. So Kasparov plays e4, and here they have a Spanish. So this is just the main line. Both sides just develop. And here, there's a lot of options. You can play knight a5, you can play knight b8, you can play rook e8, but here Kasparov chooses bishop b7. This is called the Zaitsev variation. So now he's just putting this bishop on this good diagonal, aiming at the e4 pawn. But white now plays d4. So as you can see now, supported by the c3 pawn, Kasparov is getting a big center and he's playing very aggressive. But Karpov just develops, and now he brings his bishop back to f8. So the idea is that now this rook is also aiming at e4. So in the future, if there's a trade on d4, then this rook will be opened up, and this bishop on f8 also defends the king, and maybe you'll want to fianchetto the bishop. So here, Kasparov plays a4. So he's trying to undermine black's queenside pawns. So what should black do here? Should he take? Should he push forward? Or should he maybe develop his queen? So here the best move is just to develop the queen, to just connect the rooks. So you don't want to take here, because this just allows white to take back, and now you have a weak a pawn. So when white plays bishop c4 and queen e2, he can put pressure on this isolated a pawn. So queen d7 is good, and you don't want to play b4 either, because even though you're attacking white's center, white can just play d5, and then once your knight moves, and then it can take your pawn, because your knight is no longer guarding it. So here queen d7 is the best move, just connecting the rooks, so that after the trade and the a file opens up after rook takes a8, black can take back. So now Kasparov plays d5 and knight a5. So in this position, you can see that Kasparov has a big center, and he's blocking off this bishop on a8. And this bishop on f8 also looks pretty bad because it's blocked by its own pawns. So it looks like here white has an advantage. But in this position, what black is going to do is he's going to try and attack white's weak pawns. So he's going to try and play c6 and b4 and just try and undermine these pawns, because since white has pushed all his pawns forward with e4 and d5 and c3, now they become weaknesses. So in the future, after c6, e4 may become a weakness, or the d5 pawn will become a weakness. But since black has played pretty passively and he hasn't moved a lot of pawns, his pawn structure is pretty solid. White can't really attack any of his pawns. So bishop a2, Kasparov retreats, and now c6. So he's attacking this d5 pawn, and now you can see that after b4, knight b7, if this trade on d5 happens, white will be left with the backwards c pawn, and then white can move his rook in, and this d5 pawn will also be weak when the bishop will attack and the knight will attack it. So here Kasparov plays c4. He's trying to protect his d5 pawn. So here there's a lot of tensions going on in the center. So what should black do here in this position? So here black should play rook to c8, because you just want to keep these tensions, because white can never take you, because if white decides to take, now you can see that black has this open c file. And now here you don't want to take on c4, because now white can take back with a knight, and now his knight is going to b6, where it's going to be annoying. and attack your queen and bishop. And you also don't want to take here, because you can take on d5 at any time. So you just want to develop your rook first, and then after the trade, your rook will be on the open file. So here Kasparov takes, and after the queen trade, now you can see that the bishop is now active, and white has some weak pawns on b4 and e4, and his center is gone. And now black is just going to start attacking the pawns. So here white plays c5. So his idea is that if you take on c5, now white is going to take on e5 and double attack your queen and the f7 pawn. So once your queen moves, now white is going to take on f7, and this is winning for white. So here in this position, Karpov plays knight to d8, just protecting this f7 pawn and opening up the bishop to attack the e4 pawn. So now after bishop to b2, and now Karpov can take on c5, because if now white takes on e5, the f7 pawn is defended by the knight, so black can just play queen a6, attack the bishop, and once the bishop moves, he can play c4, and now his position is much better because he has a passed pawn on a passed c pawn. His bishop is very good on this diagonal, and this bishop is also good on f8, attacking the b4 pawn. So here white played b takes c5, now queen takes c5, and bishop takes e5. So material is equal, but now black has the advantage because now he has this outside passed pawn, and white has a weak pawn on e4 that already has two attackers on it. So just knight d7, getting rid of the bishop. And here Karpov plays a very important move that pretty much wins the game. So what should Karpov play in this position? So you can pause your video and think about it. So here Karpov played the very good queen to b4. So congratulations if you found this. So the idea is that you want to attack this bishop, and then you also want to put pressure on the e4 pawn. So now your next move is going to be knight c5, and then attack the e4 pawn, and white really has no defense. So you can see if bishop to a1 happens, now we can play like knight to c5, and our knight can go to d3, it's attacking e4. You can go to a4 where it can attack c3, and black is better here. So instead, Kasparov plays knight b3, but after knight c5, now black can win this e4 pawn, because if white takes the knight on c5, now this bishop on b2 is undefended, and now black is attacking the knight and the bishop, and he's going to win one of the pieces. So in this position, we're attacking the e4 pawn, but white also has no way to defend because we have three attackers, and white only has one protector. So here bishop to a1, and bishop takes e4, and now black is pretty much winning because white has no play, and black has just a passed b pawn where he's going to promote. So knight to d4, knight b7. So he's just moving his pieces up. Queen e2, knight d6, takes, queen g4, rook to e8. And after a few more moves, you can see that white just has no chance here because of black's solid pawn structure. There's no weaknesses for white to attack. So this is just winning. So b4, and now trading the rooks, just simplifying the position. And then after knight to d3, Kasparov resigned because we're attacking this queen, and this knight has an outpost on d3 where it's supported by the bishop. This bishop is good on b4, and this queen is going to come in, and just this pawn is going to promote, and there's no weaknesses in black's position for white to attack. So in this game, you can see how Kasparov really over-pushed and overextended his pawns in the center, and after that, Karpov just undermined the center And then white was left with a lot of weak pawns. So you can see after the opening, Kasparov really pushed forward in the center. But now after c6 and after white played c4, now that we have a lot of tensions. But since all of white's pawns are very far extended, they've become weaknesses, and Karpov just attacked the weaknesses and eventually won the e4 pawn and won the game. So you can see, since Karpov didn't push any of his important pawns, there's no weaknesses for him to attack. But now, white, since he pushed his pawns in the center, now he's created the weakness in the center, and now black can just push forward his b pawn. So after this important queen b4 move, he plays knight c5. He wins the e4 pawn, and after some more maneuvering, eventually Karpov won. Yeah, and so in this position, even though black is only up a pawn, Kasparov could play on, but eventually he's going to lose, so here he just resigned. So that's it for today, and I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.